Hello, everyone. Yeah, we're waiting. Celeste Maloy will be in. Man, everything's sounding
Are
awful
we
hot.
live?
Yeah,
Hi,
Celeste.
everybody.
Hold on. Remember, I got to push all the buttons. Celeste Maloy will be in here in a few minutes, and we'll bring her on then.
Well, welcome to Political Head Trauma.
Yep. Or if Head Trauma had a podcast, it'd sound like this.
This is a special Monday night edition
Yes.
of Political Head Trauma. So welcome and thank you everyone for tuning in. We're really excited to have Congresswoman Celeste Maloy, who's in our county today, and she came here. So
Yeah,
she'll be here. She's on her way.
Yep. She'll be here in just a minute.
In about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So as we're getting all started, get people a chance to join in on us.
Yeah. I am just cleaning up some of the
Kamala did. Did you see that? What a photo opportunity.
Yeah, I did.
People got in line at this McDonald's. I can only imagine the Secret Service hell attached to it. And then it was, there's one video where he's salting the fries. That's my kind of French fry. He covered them in salt. I think the manager was like, eek. So
I don't know.
I love McDonald's fries.
I saw clips of it. We still got to do our sharing also. But
you guys, the election is 2 weeks away tomorrow. It's coming on so quickly. And for those of you who have been participating over the last few weeks in the Patriot train or Trump train, we are going to have a special guest on Friday to talk more about that. Christopher Fields is going to join us. He's been on the show before with you and Dave in the past, and he's a very good friend of mine. We used to work together, and I just love that kid, love his family, his amazing wife and his kids. He's a patriot for sure. And a lot of people may not realize, but in 2020, this Trump train kind of organically started with a few people, and then it turned into something unbelievable, actually unprecedented, probably the largest Trump train in the Midwestern United States.
Yeah, he had a pretty good turnout.
I think you guys did a show from there, which, I'm trying to work with him, and if Jared and I can do it, we'd like to be there Sunday when they, before then, get to talk to some of you, maybe interview with some of you, and get people excited. I just think it's awesome when people, just regular citizens, just decide that this is something that they can do, want to do, and gets more people excited and gets everybody going. I love that.
I've known Chris for probably just under 50 years now. We grew up together.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's amazing. I've only known him about 10.
And he's always been an outgoing guy. Yeah. This Trump train thing he did was fun. The event we did was fun. Yeah, it worked out great.
And he's a veteran also, right?
Yeah. Well, our Air Force, almost veteran. Just kidding, guys.
You silly. Well, and I'm excited because, on the GOP front, I'm really excited about our candidates. I'm excited for these last couple of weeks and hopefully getting people to bank your vote. If you've heard that expression, that just means as soon as you get that ballot, fill it out and take it to a drop box. They're everywhere. And the Tooele County Clerk's website has got all the details you need. Tracy has been phenomenal. She's already had the the open house where you get to see how the ballots are actually counted and you get to see how the machines work and their process. And I think that transparency is so refreshing. And we've got a few ads coming out so you should see some stuff from the GOP. We are going to be I'm actually currently working with Transcript Bulletin. So I do love those guys over there. I mean, if we're going to talk about a free and fair press, if you can even ever find one in this country, we certainly have one here in Tooele County. I never know what party the folks I work with are on. They do such great work and they just report the story and, they just give you what they know. Not an agenda-driven paper at all. So that's a testament to Tim Gilly and the amazing staff out there. And Jason, thanks for your help.
We could probably
and
say
Liz, thanks for your help.
a lot of that is because of where we're at, the location. I don't think a publication would go very far out here if it was coming across with really any bent, especially a kind of a crazy left-wing bent like we get out of anything out of Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And so the good news is they come across rather unbiased out here. And that's what we need in media.
Like maybe the rural community mindset where you can be a Democrat or a Republican, but you honestly, you just want the news. You don't need a certain rag to feed you the agenda with it.
Yes.
Again, it's refreshing. It's refreshing to me. And I say this all the time. Tim has been at so many events and he's reports on our county. He shows up at the county council meetings twice a month, if not more. He's writing stories all the time, politically. And I always joke, I've known the man almost 15 years and I still don't know how he votes. I don't know if he votes. He tells me he does, but I never ask him, like, what party are you from?
I would like to see news people not voting for a while. Just to be that unbiased.
Yeah, well, I mean, some people would call us news people.
Yeah.
And you're always saying I'm not voting, but you're voting this year, huh? Yeah, that's making me feel really self-assured.
Actually, hold on. Let me finish up this background on the show and then we'll chat for a second.
Because we got local races to think about. I think you're voting for school board, I think.
One, I am not a news person.
Yeah, I'm not either.
That requires some intellect.
Does it though?
Yes,
what do you mean?
It does. Actually,
you mean disseminating through the information?
Yeah, and I mean, it requires there's an art to it. You've got to see the story, figure out how to portray the story, how to write it so it's engaging. There's a lot to it. What I want to say is, do you know who Anna Kasparian is?
I think so.
She's on the Young Turks, a very progressive internet news show. And over the last, I would say, 6 months, and maybe that'll be our kickoff. I'll kind of tell this little story about what's been going on with her, but I've got to finish this backside of this.
I have someone else doing it also.
Yeah. So carry the show for just another 2 minutes.
Okay. Hey guys, if you haven't registered to vote, get out and register.
Isn't it too late right now?
I think you should be able to.
Really?
again, go to the Twilla County Clerk's page because she's got all the information on there. And again, use the ballot drop, like the ballot boxes. Use those. They're all over the county. Saves you a stamp. And if you don't want to vote in person, if you do want to vote in person, the polls will be open on Tuesday, and I believe Monday. Early voting starts in person at the county, but on election day, there's 3 locations: Stansbury, Grantsville, and Twilla City. So if you want to go vote in person, please do. But you'll see Bank My Vote, and that's something that we're seeing all over the country. When early voting is open, we just want you to fill it out quickly, and write, of course, however you feel, and then get it dropped. Get it to the clerk. That should speed up the process on election night tenfold. So it helps us get our answer earlier.
Okay. Enough of that boring talk.
Rude.
So Anna Kasparian, she's a very progressive woman. But she's having a come around. What happened? It kicked off with she got essayed on the street by a homeless person. And she went to Twitter after it happened. She was walking her dog. A guy grabbed her by the hips behind her and started thrusting into her. He was obviously, in her words, on something, and he had a friend with him that stood and laughed, and she felt very threatened. She lives in California. It's probably good she didn't carry a firearm with her, because that would have been a definite negative outcome story that she would have come out probably doing jail time with. But anyway, she went to Twitter afterwards, told her story on Twitter, and her side, the left disparaged her. They went at her hard. How can you say things like that about one? Both these guys were white, but she didn't mention the color in there. How can you say these things about minorities? And then she's like, how can you do all this? And that started an awakening in her that made her start rethinking things.
Really?
After that, she went and looked at the Rittenhouse case and went on her program and said, I was wrong. He was completely justified.
Huh.
And then she started digging into some of the stuff they said about Trump. And she has been on there. She's still politically left, but she has been on there talking about how she thinks that the way the Trump situation was handled and the rhetoric that came out of her side was ridiculous.
Which situation? All of them?
All of them. All of them. Like when she, especially, so she's been getting further dragged by the left, by all of the
the most accepting and loving side.
Well,
as long as you agree with them.
Yeah, the fascist side of the United States. Do you know what BreadTube is?
Oh, hi, Patricia.
BreadTube is what they call communist YouTubers or Twitch streamers or all that. They call them BreadTubers because of bread lines. And she has been dragged hard by them. And it keeps pushing her closer to our side. And honestly, I want her to keep her political views. I want her to stay left because I think it'll be good to have someone on that side who has a clear-eyed view of everything going on, because we need that. We need that on both sides. Or if you want to watch a country burn to the ground, keep going the way we're going.
Yeah, Jeff says news people like felons, no vote.
Yeah, I think news people should be apolitical. It would be ideal, but that's something she said. She said, I'm not going to vote this year. She was on another YouTube show called Stitch and Adam. and she was they were interviewing her, and she's like, I'm rethinking everything about who I am and
Oh, she got
who I
red
am
pilled.
as a media personality. And so, yeah, that'll be interesting. Okay, so hi, Patricia. Hi, Jeff. Fred's on here, I saw. Hi, Fred. Patricia said, I need to say it in her voice. Pretend I'm yelling at me. You promised me that you will vote this year. Okay. So here's the news.
Hi, Mom.
I filled out my ballot.
What?
I did already. It's in the envelope.
Are you feeling okay?
Chase Oliver all the way.
I don't care who it is. I'm
No, I'm just kidding.
glad you're participating in our country's civics.
I filled it out. Yeah, this year, I've been yelled at by you and Patricia and random people on the street. So I felt, and I know that my vote is not going to make a difference at all in the great state of Utah. It's not going to make a difference at all. If I voted for whoever, it wouldn't change the outcome that Utah is going to get.
Yeah. Do you think down ticket as well?
No, I did not go down ticket, but
you didn't vote for governor?
I did vote for governor, but I didn't vote down ticket, just Republican.
You cannot vote down ticket anymore. But I'm saying, did you vote on all this?
I filled out every box, yes.
But do you think your voice doesn't have any?
Oh, the governor one, I think that one, I mean, especially where we have the write-in campaign going, that could go weird.
Bad. It
but
could go bad.
We don't know. I don't know. And maybe having a Democrat governor with a hard Republican representative and Senate might be a good thing. We've proven in the past that that's the only time that our federal government gets its house in order. Because when you give it all to the Republicans, the feds, they spend more than the Democrats spend. So I don't know, maybe, but I don't know.
I don't know on a state level. I mean,
it remains to be seen.
I wouldn't mind if they did nothing. That's better than doing any damage. But I think once you get someone in a seat, it's hard to unseat incumbents.
Either way, it remains to be seen. Also, that would have to be one heck of a conservative acting Democrat. And I think we start needing to have.
No, the guy here is not.
He would have to be. He would be forced to be a conservative acting Democrat because he would get nothing done. But anyways, I don't know on that political
sometimes
theory.
That's a good thing. We've got Senate. I mean, I just saw Mitch McConnell has pulled money from Ted Cruz's campaign, refused to give him a cent. And so, I mean, he's in a battle in Texas.
Yeah, well,
they're calling that a swing state.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell.
For the seat.
Look, here's another knock on Republicans. Mitch McConnell. How?
The turtle.
How is that guy still where he is? He's not a product that fits in with the modern day Republican Party. He's a product of the Republican Party that popped up and appeared under George Bush Sr. and is dead now. And he's still there. They've got to wash him out. The Republican Party needs to start taking out its laundry.
Amen. Amen.
These war hawk Republicans, these neocon Republicans need to go away. Yeah.
What about the war hawk Democrats all of a sudden? That's
always been, though.
It's
always been. In World War II, in the build up to World War II.
Turtle from the swamp. Yep.
The Republicans were known as do-nothing isolationists. They were called that all the time. That was the biggest knock they had about them. We can't get them to get involved in foreign stuff. And all of a sudden, you get this number 2 of the CIA is president, and next thing you know,
In
the
his
Republican
interests,
Party becomes the war party.
because his interests involved were, capitalizing on war, making money.
Yeah.
I mean, politics is dirty enough, but these politicians who are profiting from war is just it's obscene. Especially, we got 1 million people dead in Russia and Ukraine. 1 million.
If you're
And they're
counting it
calling-
lightly.
And they're calling the thousands killed in Gaza a genocide. What about Russia, Ukraine, folks? 1 million, a generation. For
Well,
what? For what?
Yeah, I don't know. That war is going to end either with, they won't call it World War III while it's going on, but that's what they'll call it after it's over.
And that involves the United States
Mm-hmm.
going over there, China going over there.
North Korea, did you hear North Korea's got troops in there?
Yeah. So I've seen China's been revving up too.
I don't think China will. Okay, so North Korea.
What does it look like? Did the China and North Korea travel? Is the war fought in Russia, or does it get brought to our shores?
I don't know.
Or the Middle East?
So North Korea went over there because I think North Korea is so isolationist. They're so behind the times.
Yeah, they believe in unicorns.
I think they wanted to. They're so behind the times. They don't know of unicorns to believe in.
Oh yeah, they believe their dear leader has them,
But
and he also doesn't use the bathroom.
no, and he gets an 18 hole in one. But he, but realistically, realpolitik, they haven't been involved in any real action. They're such a closed off country that their general staff doesn't know what war fighting is outside. So I think the reason they're sending troops over is I think they're sending them over as advisors. And they're not there to advise, but what an advisor will do is go there and watch. We had Army and Marines in the snow war, the
Cold War?
No, it was
Snow
way
war?
before that. In the why am I forgetting the name of that Norwegian country? Starts with an S. Come on, start throwing them out. Why am I?
Switzerland?
That's
Sweden.
Russia invaded Sweden just prior to World War II. We sent soldiers and Marines over there as advisors just to watch to see what war looks like. The militaries do this all the time.
Sure. So they know kind of what they're dealing with if they end up having to get involved, right?
If something new is invented, you want to know. So the Koreans have sent a couple of their units over, I think, in that position to try to see what does modern day war look like.
Well, and how many actual members of the military in North Korea have ever seen battle?
None of them.
They're literally, all they know is what they see on television or see when they send advisors over.
They don't get television though.
Well, I'm sure Kim Jong-un is showing them, cool American war movies.
Maybe, I don't know, but none of that. And he's got such a strong stranglehold. I mean, remember, he machine gunned his top general.
Right. He can't have anyone.
He can't have anyone see the outside. He's had his top nuclear scientists defected to us. He's had top generals defect to South Korea or to Republic of Korea. He's had all this. So yes, so that's, so I think he sent them over there as advisors. It's a challenging move. North Korea's always had a hard time sending people to the Olympics because he worries that they will then see the outside defect, bring back new stuff. I mean, one of their top crimes right now came out 3 years ago is that is bringing over, it was a big thing. They would put on those little, they would sneak over South Korean sitcoms on either those thumb drives or the
and music
DVDs and stuff. And that was a big thing, but he's actually cracked down on that over the last year. And
Cracked down. He started sending poop back
well, he wasn't
in balloons over in retaliation.
he really wasn't cracking down on it until I don't know if he knew the hazards of it, but you know, as Kim Jong-un, he's got to be looking. He's, as Thomas Jefferson said, he's got a wolf by its ears. He can neither afford to hold on to it nor afford to let it go.
It must be terrifying being a dictator, because you have to have the worst of the worst in your military, prepared to do the worst of the worst. But at the same time, if they ever turn on you,
well, there's the
you have
populace.
to have that fear factor over your own military. Remember Saddam Hussein, when he called that meeting in the night, and all his top military comes in and they wait in this dark room for hours thinking we're all going to be killed today.
Yeah.
And then he did it to strike fear in them, and then he fed them, but they were all terrified. They were terrified after that. Is that the camera or is that the
camera? Ours is the one on the left. All right. Rooster says, hello,
Hi,
guys.
Rooster.
Good to see you. Harris VP pick is governor. Have you seen what he's done to his state? Burn it down, and didn't even protect his law enforcement or even called in National Guard to save his city. Well, let's remember, it wasn't just him. His whole city was hard left. His whole city burned down. The city council, the city mayor, and the police chief all came out in support of what they were doing.
And the wife said she opened the windows so she could smell the smoke.
And
they called us
this
weird.
Is any city that has a certain population size. Look at the maps of states, right? States that have a urban population that is larger than their rural population are states that are in Democrat duress right now. All of them. And states that have a rural population that is equal to or more than the urban population are states that are functioning normal. So you've got states like California has a huge number of Republicans in it. It's got more Republicans than any other state. But it's got those urban strongholds that mean those Republicans have absolutely zero voice in their.
It's called gerrymandering. Districts are put together in a way to, depending on the state. I mean, we've been accused of it in Utah, to keep voices down in certain districts. But his state actually, just a report came out, I heard yesterday, his state ranked dead last in spending and economy. And
I said, why, Democrat.
Why on earth? And I'm just talking about the vice president candidate. I mean, why would you pick him?
Why would the Democrats pick him?
Yeah, because he wouldn't be a threat to Kamala, maybe, but he's a heartbeat away. He's horrible. He's a horrible legislator.
But the Democrats have only one goal they're looking at, and that's social revenge.
I know, but they're getting their revenge now.
Well, that's the goal they're looking at.
Why not pick someone more moderate than Kamala Harris? So to bring the Democrats over.
Well, because I don't
understand
the more moderate,
someone crazy and absolutely weird. He's weird.
The more moderate that was more popular, that would have made a severe challenge to Vance, was Shapiro.
Sure, and I think that's who Obama wanted. I still to this
day think that's who Kamala wanted too.
I think that KJP had the Twitter account, and this sounds like crazy conspiracy, but I think when they made the announcement about Biden, I think she put it into place that Kamala was going to be the new nominee. And I think just because she had the account, I don't think Trump or Obama even wanted her.
Do you know? Yeah, I don't think so either, but maybe. Maybe
so she'd have to pick
maybe he
worse
picked
than
her because he'd
VP.
have to have her to 28th Amendment Biden. She has to be involved in that. And so maybe they went to her first. But the reason they didn't pick Shapiro is because Israel-Palestine. The reason Israel is in a lose-lose war right now, because the modern age, they have completed their long march through the institutions. The modern age believes that anybody poor is virtuous. Anybody with more melanin is more virtuous. Anybody who maybe committed a crime and did their time is more virtuous. They don't see virtue in anyone who strives to do good from the start.
They don't recognize merit in
And
any
so
form.
That's where we are. And that's why Israel, I don't see a path that Israel doesn't lose this.
Hi, Camille. Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Because in the end, that's where they're going to be. Right now, the Russia-Ukraine war, how did Kamala explain it? A country in Europe
is a little
and another country in
country.
Europe and a bigger country in Europe. Bam. She just declared all the value that was
In
laid
her
out.
defense, she was asked to explain it in the most basic way that she could for the young listeners to understand. So I have to do that because you know what? I'd rather lead. I hate when they misquote
Mhm.
people. And so it's
And
just,
the truth is, the Democrats truly believe if they do this stuff, that on the other side of this is a utopia. They truly believe it.
I think the utopia to them is ultimate power.
Utopia doesn't exist.
Right. But to them, I don't think it's about a perfect society. I think it's ultimate power.
Oh, I agree.
And
it sounds
fascism.
like
So
our guest might be
Jeff
here.
says war and illness, most profitable for politicians.
Yes.
Sad but true. And Kamala bailed out the scum.
Yes.
She did. And
Rooster says North Korea is sending troops to Russia, Ukraine purely for training and fighting experience. Yes, and to bring back knowledge. I mean, North Korea has not been in a war since 1954.
what's the weather like in North Korea?
It's cold as heck.
Okay.
All right, our guest is here. Let's bring her in. Hi.
Oh my goodness.
Are we live?
Did we
Yeah,
call
we're
each
chatting
other
before you
and
got
pick
here.
our color?
Oh no.
Come on in. Who we got with you?
She's my comms director.
So
If we
nice
could
to
just
meet you.
let her sit somewhere where she's not on camera.
And what's your name?
I'm Bella.
Bella?
Yes.
Everybody,
Good to meet
we are
you, Bella.
welcoming
Welcome to the
Congresswoman Celeste Maloy to Tooele County again. So good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'll have to line up the camera. Get you on there. Everyone, hold on just a second.
I know. I was in
Gorgeous
traffic
out there.
for a minute, but it went really fast and it
Yeah.
looks really great. You look great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What were you doing in
Because
town?
well,
Look at the color coordination.
I
I almost wore a Hawaiian shirt tonight.
You should have. We'd have looked awesome.
I thought Holly'd get after me.
Yeah, because I really get
For-
after your.
Looking too crazy.
So what were you doing?
I've been having meetings in Salt Lake all day. I did a ride along with the police and
What city? Salt Lake City?
Mhm.
Oh, how cool.
yeah.
And you're also going to be at an event Thursday, right?
I'm not. We just figured out we had a scheduling problem. with that.
Oh,
I'm going to be on the road Thursday campaigning with my colleagues, trying to help us hold the majority in the House.
Yeah. So what's
Really?
the
Where are you gonna
margin?
be?
It's like 8 right now,
New
right?
Mexico.
oh,
Yeah, it's-
shoot.
4.
4.
Yeah.
See, and there's battleground states that I'm just going, wait, what? Like with Ted
Yeah.
Cruz's race in the Senate.
Yeah. Who would have ever thought that would be so close? So my number 2 priority right now, my number 1 priority is representing the people of the 2nd district. Well, my number 2 priority, very close behind, is holding the majority, because what happens in November is going to have a big impact for a long time on this country. And because our generals in Utah aren't that bad, I'm spending some time in other states trying to help voters there know how important it is that we have the majority. And it's just always nice to have somebody who's not you tell your constituents what you're doing in Congress. So I'm going to go.
I love it.
Do that.
And New Mexico, are you going to, is it rural communities you're going to, or you can express what you've gone through here?
Yeah. Yeah. New Mexico's a funny state because
Yeah.
they're an oil and gas state, but they vote blue. And
Yeah.
so I'm
it's,
going to help make the case that they
Because
have
you-
natural resources issues. They need us.
You have an urban center and nothing else.
I know, but Almost every Western state is that way.
No, well, okay. Nevada,
Yeah, went blue, but I think we're going to get Nevada back.
Arizona,
Yeah.
We're going to get Arizona back. Maybe not this
Arizona,
cycle.
and New Mexico all went blue. And
Yeah.
that's because everyone lives in 3 urban cities.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
New Mexico, everyone lives in 2.
Mm-hmm.
Nevada, everyone lives in 2.
Yep. And really
and that's
one.
and well, really one. But
Yeah.
that's the split. It's right now the lines have been drawn. It's urban and rural.
Yeah. But the thing with these Western states that have gone gone blue, is that they used to vote red.
Mhm.
And they've gone blue because of, blue collar workers and unions and immigrants, people who are kind of drawn to the Democrat
would
Party
say
because of
That
social
third
programs.
word you said is
Yeah.
the dominant reason.
But
And Soros.
those voters are starting to realize that all the things that they were promised by the Democrats aren't actually coming true.
Nor have
And-
they ever.
Yeah. And we have better policies that, make their lives better. And so I think we're getting these Western states back. They're back in play.
Well,
They're
and our
socially
Our
They're-
state party has actually gone knocking on doors in both Nevada and Arizona recently.
Yeah.
And for that very reason, to preserve the Senate and the House. Well,
Yeah.
to
We're
get
gonna
the
flip
Senate,
Yeah.
and
So-
then preserve the House.
For anyone who's listening, thank you for doing that. It really does make a big difference. I was in Arizona at the end of that. I was there on the Sunday and did the Trump rally and the, Mormons for Trump fireside thing. And it really does energize those swing states when people will go and knock doors and talk to people face to face. So thank you,
Yeah.
everyone in Utah who put in the time to do that.
And that LDS for Trump event that you went to, what I'm hearing is that you were quite remarkable. It was kind of a little crazy and you were awesome.
It was partly my fault that it was crazy. This was one of those campaign season just gets weird. Campaigns get weird. Everybody gets tired and frantic. And anyway, I had agreed to be part of it. And they sent me a link for logging in, but they also kept asking us to promote it on social media. And I was on the road. I was in 5 states that week. And that was at the end of the week. And I was tired. My chief of staff was tired. So we sent the link to our campaign team and said, will you put this on social media so people will log in? And we sent my link, like the presenter link.
Oh.
So I was sitting on that
Everybody's
fireside
the presenter.
and they had spelled my name wrong. So I could tell which one was the real me because I corrected the spelling of my name, but there were like 65 people logged on at one point with my name, which meant they could unmute themselves. They could turn on their cameras.
Oh, and they probably had to go through and flush all that out.
They did. So if you went through my social media and you got kicked off in the middle, I apologize. I did try to get them. They said, well, we're going to kick everybody off. I said, why don't you go in the chat and post the right link so that they can just go click on it and get on. And for some reason they didn't do that.
See, that's why we vote for people like you, because that's just called logic, common sense.
Well, after I, illogically, not common sense, sent them the presenter link. So I apologize to anyone who logged on with my link and then got kicked off too.
Well, that would happen.
In 2024, though, we've all been using Zoom for a long time. I should be better at it than that.
Well,
In 2020, we were all making those mistakes.
And I recognize why they wanted you to share it for obvious reasons, because you've got another reach above theirs or outside of theirs. So I understand that. But things like that happen, and you've been blowing the doors off of traveling everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I'm back on the road again tomorrow.
This is crazy.
Really?
What's it like in the heat? This is your first November ticket that is you've served now.
Yeah.
You've run a full campaign, not without a lot of ups and downs and crazy.
Sure.
And you got the people's vote.
Yeah.
Gone through a recount.
I'm hardened now. I'm
Right?
I'm not boot anymore.
You're the Iron Lady.
Yeah.
No,
it's you asked what's it like?
Yeah.
It is actually really cool to go to these swing states and talk to voters we are so lucky in Utah. We have our problems politically. We have our differences but we still have a supermajority. And that is a whole different world than what these swing states are dealing with. And what I learned, especially in Wisconsin and Iowa, where not only do we have swing House districts, but they're swing states for the presidential election, they are so tired. They've been getting inundated with the presidential race for 8 months now.
Yeah.
And
they
I was
probably
sitting,
want a Serta commercial.
They do. That's what I was going to tell you. I was sitting at a VFW on a Friday night for Friday night fish fry in Wisconsin.
Sounds delicious.
I don't actually eat fish, but it was really fun. And I did eat fish that night because that's how much I care about Derek Van
Hold
Orden.
on, you don't eat fish.
I don't.
Why?
I grew up in a really dry part of the country, and I just
You
don't
think
eat
you'd-
things that swim.
You'd think you'd want more of it.
No, I conserve water. I eat cows
Have you
and pigs.
had crab?
I have, but I ate halibut that night. That's how much I want to
Wow.
help my
Good
buddy
fish.
Derek Van Orden. And the PGA Tour was going on here in Utah, down in Black Desert. And so I was sitting there, and I was, talking to people at this VFW in Wisconsin, and they'd say, "Where's your district?" And I would point at the screen where the PGA Tour was on and say, "That's my district right there." And
That
it
and
just
the
looked
little north.
stunning. Yeah. But because I was kind of keeping an eye on that screen, I noticed every single commercial was a presidential commercial,
Oh.
a Senate commercial, because they have Hovde trying to flip that Tammy Baldwin seat, or a congressional race commercial. And if you can imagine having had that going on for months, there were middle-aged ladies coming in and flipping off my colleague, Derek Van Orden. I mean, he is a veteran. He's a Navy SEAL commander
At the VFW of all
at
places.
the VFW in his district. And it was just like, people there are crabby and testy, and they've been through a lot of campaigning.
Why has politics gotten this detestable?
That's an open-ended question.
I think, now I'm not an expert on, human behavior. So if the callers want to come in and correct me, that's great. But I think people are really crabby right now. They're sort of testy right now because things are changing. We can all feel that something's changing, and it's scary. I still think we're changing in the right direction. And people think I'm nuts when I say this, but here's my argument. So I know the Biden administration has not been good for us. A Harris administration would be a disaster.
What? Tell me more.
But
Well, and the economy, people are affected. Like, that'll make you crabby right there if you can't
Yeah.
pay your bills.
yeah, when your paycheck's not going far enough, you get testy. But underneath all of that, we have the Supreme Court overturning the Chevron case and saying that the court doesn't owe deference to.
That was fantastic. That was the best decision
Yeah.
the Supreme Court had ever made.
And it's so much bigger than I think most people realize yet.
Okay, Democrats, listen. Do you like democracy? Do you like it that people you vote for actually have imposition on how you live your life? Or do you want it so that people you don't vote for,
Yeah.
bureaucrats who are hired and sleaze their way up through the ranks, have the imposition on your life?
People who have political theories but are not accountable to the public are making most of the decisions. Most of the things we think of as laws coming out of Washington, D.C. are actually rules or regulations coming out of an agency that have the force of law. And the Supreme Court just undercut all of that.
They
And-
should have done it in the 60s.
Yeah. Well, so the Chevron case was
Came in
decided in
at
the 80s,
81
84,
or
84. So it was
yeah.
40 years old. But yeah, the bureaucratic state started in the 40s.
Yeah.
This is an 80-year problem in the making. So there are very few
40s,
people
the-
left.
The teens. This was the dream of Woodrow.
Sure, Woodrow Wilson started the progressive movement, but the New Deal alphabet soup
So we
agencies
can see ourselves.
are the ones that we're still, dealing with every day, that have gotten bigger, gotten stronger. And so we have an opportunity right now to roll a lot of that back. And, Roe v. Wade's been overturned, and we've got, even Democrats out campaigning on permit reform because the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed and it's hard to rebuild.
Yeah.
And so I think we are actually moving towards smaller, more accountable government and more individual freedom. And I think we're going to end up in a place that we'll all be a lot happier with. But I think people are crabby because they can't see that yet. What they see is we have too much government. We're paying for too much government. We have too much interference in our lives. And that government interference is causing a lot of the social problems that we spend a lot of time fighting about. But those problems are actually an outgrowth of too much government. And I think we're moving towards less government, more individual freedom. And I think we're going to end up in a good place. I'm also going to predict that the process is going to scare a lot of people. Because no matter how much you think you like individual freedom, if you're 80 years
It's
old,
messy.
you don't remember a time before the New Deal. If you've been working for 40 years, you don't remember a time before Chevron deference. So it's something that we all want, but it's something we're not used to. And I tell the story all the time, and I hope my niece never watches your podcast, but I was staying at my brother's house for Christmas a few years ago. My niece, who's now a teenager, was just a toddler, and they started potty training her during Christmas break while we were there. And after the first day of potty training, she was so emotionally exhausted. She went and climbed on her mom's lap and started bawling, "I want my diapers back. I just want my diapers back." And I suspect that a lot of Americans are going to be a little bit like that. You know, we're not used to this kind of responsibility and this kind of freedom. And when we get our first taste of it, or as we start getting more and more of it, I think some people are going to get scared. I think they're going to get emotionally exhausted and they're going to want their diapers back.
I just heard a wedding toast.
I was going to say, I heard someone say on Carlson or Tucker Carlson recently that regardless of how the vote goes in November, if we do get the win, which when we get the win, I'm hopeful, but how do we deal with a society that is mentally ill? Either way, how do you get what does it look like if Kamala wins?
Start putting Xanax in the water.
And what does it look like if she loses?
Yeah.
Because both sides are so hyper political now.
Yeah.
And, you know, if Texas is a swing state, when I was in Texas, it was constant commercials and everything else. And I'm like, if Texas is on the chopping block, what happens if Kamala somehow pulls out a win? And there are questionable counties again, like what happened in 2020. What does the right do? And then if they win, if Trump wins handedly, what does the left do?
I don't know. I wish I had the answer to both of those questions. I do think asking both of those questions is the right thing. When I was on the road a week ago, I was with one of my colleagues in a swing state, and he said, you know, everybody keeps asking, what are Republicans going to do if Trump loses? He said, I think everyone forgets about what happened when Trump won.
Yep.
In 2016, there were riots in DC. He said, I had people come to DC for the inauguration who will never come back to Washington, DC. They got threatened. They were, and people forget about like the cabinet members in the Trump administration who couldn't go out to eat.
Right.
They'd get shouted out of restaurants.
Senators too.
And so what's going to happen? I don't know. What needs to happen? We need to all grow up.
Amen.
We need to grow up and accept outcomes. And we need to be able to function in a world where everything's not going our way. And if, I do think Trump's going to win. And when he wins, we don't need to have riots in the streets in DC. The whole world is still watching us. So this is one of the things that has really surprised me as a member of Congress. I've done some traveling internationally, and every country I've gone to, they talk about our elections. We are still the standard for the world.
And they're all having political strife too.
Yeah.
Every country is. And you know what it is? I've said this on the show before, so now it's just your turn to hear it. The Gutenberg press has been invented.
That happened a while ago.
Yeah.
Well, it's the internet.
Yeah.
And now the Catholic Church is breaking in half. And that's where we're at.
But that led us to good places.
It did.
And
it took a 30 years war.
at.
That was the craziest war Europe had ever seen. Not the bloodiest, just the weirdest.
And so I think the process is actually going to hurt a little.
Yeah.
Like getting us back to where we need to be isn't going to look pretty all the time. And we're going to have to keep our eye on the end result. We're going to have to keep reminding ourselves and each other the individual freedoms and balance.
And accountability.
Accountability, transparency, balance between the branches, balance between the federal and state governments is worth what it's going to cost us. Because I think there's going to be a lot of crying and I want my diapers back along the way.
Yeah. I hope the nation survives this.
You know what this is reminding me of is the conversation we had earlier in the year regarding votes. And you said that the Congress needs to set itself up to prepare for a Trump reelection. And I mean, it's all tied in there.
Yep.
If Congress has done what it can so that when Trump is elected, we don't do what we did in 2016 and the party implodes.
Yeah.
And they pick their side against our president. We have to unite. It might get expensive in order to get less expensive. It might take a number of hearings of government entities to get rid of the bureaucrat problem. And I don't know if we could do it in 4 years, but I sure as heck hope he gets in there and gets rid of some problems.
Yeah.
Is he going to give it to Vivek and Elon and just? I would just
I don't
let the
know.
leash off those guys.
I think he might. I mean, Trump is
That
a
would
business
be the
guy. He
wrecking
thinks
ball.
like a
Elon
business
mentioned
guy.
in a speech I just heard that he would go in and help with the government auditing. I mean,
Yeah, he's
he
calling
just
it
said
Doge.
But the thing is, we don't even need it. Congress can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're accountable to the people. We can do it. We just have to do it.
Well, that is true, but in some ways, your hands are tied.
Well, they have
Maybe.
subpoena power.
Whereas an outside entity to come in and do a different type of audit.
So
Well, I would make the argument that the entity that should be doing the auditing and should be doing the changing is Congress because we're accountable.
It should.
it should be, but it hasn't been. Oh, you
No.
guys have been. Okay, I have to say this. The last 2 years, man, we've seen Biden laptop, we've seen FBI whistleblowers, we've seen a ton of committees and a lot of information and the Twitter files and even, Facebook and the FBI wrongdoing. But that's where it just stops. Without the Senate, we need down ticket, folks, because if the Congress can do their job and do these committees and get this information out to the American people, the Senate can then write laws.
Yeah.
And the president can push it.
And we've been passing laws and corrections to these problems out of the House, and they just don't get taken up in the Senate. So we need to have partners in the Senate to work on this. But I came here in a good mood, I guess. I keep wanting to give you guys some optimism because I feel like I'm always bringing bad news. But I've been listening. I do a lot of driving and a lot of flying, and so I burn through a lot of audiobooks. So I've been listening to a history of the United States lately that's long. So
As long as it's not the people's history, I'm
it is
okay
not.
with it. Thank you.
But
you probably got forced to listen to that every year in college. But
no, I actually didn't. Ag majors don't really have to read.
Oh, that's
like
true.
That.
Dirt doctors
We'll
don't
learn how
have to
Craig
listen
check
to
cows and stuff.
Zen.
Yeah.
Calm you moron.
I can castrate a sheep, but I didn't have to read Zen. No, it's been interesting to me in this current, political environment during this election season, listening to like the 1824 election, the one that was 200 years ago. That's when John Quincy Adams got elected. Mm-hmm. And, there were 4 guys running, and Andrew Jackson won the popular vote by a plurality, but didn't win by a majority. And so they had to have a runoff basically in the electoral college. So there were 4 guys in the race, 2 of them dropped off. Then it's between John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson. Yep. Well, Henry Clay, Speaker of the House, goes and flips a bunch of electors for John Quincy Adams. Yep. John Quincy Adams wins, becomes president, and makes Henry Clay his Secretary of State. And there were riots. Yeah. People in rural areas and across the South were rioting and saying, the election was stolen. There were shenanigans. And I thought, wait a minute,
there's nothing new under the sun.
No, there's nothing new under the sun. And he served 1 term and it was kind of a disaster. Andrew Jackson won in a landslide in the next election, and the Republic held. And just this morning, driving up, I was listening to, the post-Civil War Reconstruction era, and, what was happening on the federal level, where we couldn't even decide whether states should be represented at the federal level and what votes were legal. And again, there's nothing new under the sun.
Is this Johnston or Grant era?
Both. I listened to the end of the Johnson era and the beginning of the Grant era.
They're both crazy eras.
And like maybe the Grant era never should have happened. It's kind of hard to say which votes should have been counted and which ones weren't in the Reconstruction era. And yet we're about to celebrate our 250th anniversary as a country. And so we've been through hard times. We've been through some really legitimate questions about what's right and wrong, but we've managed to hold together as a nation. And the Civil War was the hardest thing we've ever been through as a nation. We're still here.
Yeah. Our
Constitution is designed to, work under a lot of different circumstances. We can go through a lot of different questions. I think we're going to be okay. We just have to stay in it. We have to stay involved.
Have you ever heard the theory of the life cycle of empires?
Yes, but I think you should recap it for the listeners who haven't.
The theory is that an empire can last 250 years max. Yeah. That's and everyone who studied empires.
Is the number, isn't it?
I think it's 200-ish.
200 to 250, but 250 is their max. And everyone who studied it, and then people go, well, what about Rome? Okay, you got the Roman kingdom.
Yep.
You've got the Roman Republic, and each one of them lasts 250 years. Then you've got the Roman Empire, and then you break it. You've got Eastern Rome and Western Rome.
Yeah.
And each one died. Greece was 228 years.
Okay, you're just bringing us down.
So
No.
the question is did our empire start when
David says we're not an empire.
at the end of the Civil War, or did it start now that we've gained this unipolar monopoly? When did that start?
I think it's
Or
writing in
has
the
it started yet?
Constitution.
I think that you're not counting on American exceptionalism. And I think we're going to outlive everyone's expectations.
I hope so.
Right, because the document, the Constitution,
Yes.
if a moral people, mind you, we do require that. That document can be. It is the cornerstone of a society that can work.
And that's why I say we have to stay involved. My biggest fear right now for this country is that people will get frustrated. You know, people like the people I saw in those swing states who are tired. People like I see here in Utah, who, you know, we've got a super majority and we end up fighting our own team all the time.
Oh yeah,
And people they're frustrated, they're mad, you know, sometimes they're old wounds and bitterness that people are holding on to. And my fear is that people will walk away. They'll say, I'm done. I don't want to be involved anymore. And our system only works if people are involved. If we can stay involved, we can fix a lot of problems. I mean, slavery is a stain on our history. We spilled a lot of American blood to bring that to an end, but we managed to hold together as a republic. We got through 2 world wars. We got through a Great Depression. We got through those early years as a republic where we didn't know what it meant to be America yet. And we had to figure a lot of things out. I think we've still got it in us if we stay engaged, if we stay involved, if people keep showing up. What I'm afraid of is that we are going to willingly walk away from our own system. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at with this, the history of empires. Usually,
Well,
when you've been powerful for a while, you start to take it for granted.
no,
And most of those empires, at least I've only read other people's commentaries on it. I've never actually read it. But it's not that somebody else comes in and conquers them. I don't think anyone's going to come in and conquer us.
you die from within.
Yeah.
Yes.
a party
And the
divided.
saying is empires die when they're led by bureaucrats and eunuchs.
Yeah. So
Now
we
tell me
need to
about our
claw back
government
here.
right now.
I don't know.
Anybody?
I don't know how many eunuchs we have, but we have way too much bureaucracy.
Well, I mean,
Amen.
there was that one eunuch in the old airport stealing ladies' luggage thing, but
I don't even dare comment on that
Nope,
one.
I wouldn't either.
But-
I would.
But we do have too much bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy is we're calcifying. You know, 100 years ago, we built enormous dams, and we innovated and we
Innovation,
figured out
yeah.
ways to do things. And now we permit ourselves to death and don't do things.
yeah, we're regulated out of existence.
Yeah, and
As
I
a small
think,
business owner, I can say that
Yeah.
definitively.
and every one of these regulations comes from someone who thinks they're going to make your life easier, or at least keep you safe from something.
Mhm.
So they create a program, they create a permit, they create a hoop you have to jump through. But what government never has to do, that you have to do as a business owner, when you spend resources on something, you have to go back and look at it and
Justify
say,
it.
did what I spent offset a cost? And we don't do that as government. So we may do something to you as a small business owner that is going to prevent some remote, very small harm, but we saddle you with a huge cost. And we don't go back and fix that. But we've got an opportunity right now. The Supreme Court cleared the field for us with Chevron.
Mhm.
We've got Democrats who are worried about a strong executive because they don't like Trump, and they're sick and tired of permitting because they can't get that bridge rebuilt. Republicans tend to distrust a strong executive naturally, and we don't like all the permitting and the red tape naturally. Right now, we're lined up.
Right.
We've got a lane. If we take this opportunity, I think we can make sure that we get well past 250 years. If we don't take this opportunity, we might be in trouble.
Well, that was the greatest thing Trump did. Everyone has their own declarations, but the greatest thing he did was rolling back of regulations, what little he could do.
Yeah, well, in the Supreme Court that decided that case, we can thank Trump for that.
Well, yeah, the Chevron deference. And I'm going to say that the, what's the Roe versus Wade case called? It's it's got a name. But
Yeah, it
anyways,
does.
sending it back to the states is constitutionally correct.
Yeah.
Because then we're supposed to be a melting pot. If you want to have abortions up to 36 months after they're born or whatever, move to a state that allows
That's
that.
not an abortion. That's just murdering a toddler.
So is abortion.
Fair
If
enough.
you want to have stronger restrictions, move to a state that have it. Or if you are apathetic on the questions of abortions, stay where you are. Choose.
But that's a constitution that works. And yes, we need to get back down to the basics. And here's my fear. My fear is that, ultimate power overpowers ultimately, or whatever that.
Yeah. Power
So-
corrupts, ultimate power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So absolute power
Absolute.
corrupts
Thank you.
absolutely.
Yes.
This is where we're at. I've seen it in our own Republican Party. I mean, right now in our state, we've got infighting just
Yeah.
on the races in the governor's race, for example. And people aren't grasping the fact that there's too much to risk if we cannot unite
Yeah.
and fix it so that, okay, we know there's problems here. We have to unite behind it. We got to get our win, and then let's fix it. And if
Yeah.
people aren't willing to fix it, they're gone next time.
Yep.
But instead of, well, let's just go at each other's throats till we lose.
Yeah.
And ultimately we lose for years, if
Yeah.
not decades, if
Yeah.
not everything. I mean, we could change. Utah's sitting pretty well right now in the
Yeah.
country.
No, we're blessed to be in a state where we actually have a Republican majority, and we're arguing about degrees of how conservative we should be.
Yeah.
There are other states that would love to have that problem.
Like Goth's at the weird goth dance club who has the blackest fishnets on.
Yeah, or the best eyeliner,
Oh yeah, the thickest
David's asking, how about the Sedition Act?
Alien Sedition Act.
Well, it was
That
never
was
constitutional.
okay. Very unconstitutional. It was written by a guy who threw a senator in jail because he called him fat. The Alien Sedition Act was there because they were afraid of Frenchmen going to bringing their civil war over to us after we just fought. Technically, it would have been a civil war, but it became a revolutionary war because we won. They were just afraid of the French coming over. That's all it was about. And then that carried on and charged a lot of people illegally and extrajudiciously.
And funnily
throughout
enough,
time.
I was just talking about John Quincy Adams becoming the president. That one was signed by his dad,
Yeah,
John
his
Adams,
father, John Adams,
who
his
was one of our
rotundity,
Yes.
one of our founding fathers,
Our
who
second
knew better.
president, first vice
who
president.
preached against it
Yeah.
and then preached against it right before he died.
Yeah. So even the people who gave us the Constitution struggled with living with the amount of freedom
Mhm.
it gave us. What we're going through is not new.
No.
It is tough to live as a free nation. The New Hampshire live free or die sounds like a mantra of, I'm going to die if I can't live free. But it also, those are our only options. We can either live free or die. And sometimes people choose death.
Yeah. It's
with-
terrifying to
Living
be free.
is tough. And so that's another thing I like to remind people of. It's not that the founding fathers all agreed on everything, and it's not that they knew exactly how to implement the Constitution from day one, and now we're struggling. It's always been a struggle. The struggle itself is actually important. That's part of being free. We have to embrace the struggle. We have to have these big debates. I do speak English fairly well most of the time. We have to be engaging with each other on what is the right balance of power between the feds and the states. What's the right balance of power between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches? These aren't things that are new to our generation.
No.
And they're not things we're going to solve definitively. Having that back and forth and that tug and pull is the point. That's where we protect individual freedom. When all of the different levels and branches of government are fighting each other for power, none of them can get strong enough to become tyrants. It is the struggle that keeps us
And
free.
the people have to give it up. I mean, they have to give up their power because the people have to stop engaging. They have to stop just caring about the government. And that's how their government grows beyond
Yeah.
itself. And these conversations need to happen, maybe not on a debate stage, but with your neighbor, because we need to look in each other's eyes, because the internet has made it so you can be anybody anytime and have these fights. But I'm still baffled by the fact that our founding fathers were so young.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine our Gen Zers starting a country? And yet our founding fathers were 19, 20, 21, 30.
Yeah.
Like
Benjamin
they were
Franklin
so
was older,
young.
but none of them had ever lived in a
Yeah,
constitutional
he was
republic.
older, and he heck of a womanizer for his age.
But
Even
I'm
the
saying,
French
do you see
women.
what I'm saying?
Well, it's not
Can
just
you
that, but
imagine having to start a country?
No.
And not only that, but you're risking blood and treasure
Yep.
on against a king, because people inherently want a leader.
Yeah.
They want a king.
Yeah.
And God said,
And people want to be
be
safe.
your own self. Freedom is the ultimate gift.
yes, Hamilton did want a king.
And right now, When
But
you
everybody
say
loves Hamilton now because of the musical.
people want to be safe, right now the FBI has just come out with the real numbers for sexual assaults and for violent crime,
I haven't seen
and
it.
it is way higher.
They had to
just
remember
like
how
Trump said.
they've been claiming that crime
Yeah.
went down there. No,
Yeah.
No, 30%,
it was.
40%.
Remember, you know
It
how
was
the
a summary
jobs.
fact check.
You know how
by,
the jobs works. The
yeah.
job numbers.
Yeah.
They lied about the
Flip
job
'em.
numbers. And this is the thing. In America right now, we're agreeing on we need more safety.
Mhm.
We are agreeing on the economy's not working for us. The regulations are ridiculous, and we really do have inflation. And immigration is not working. We need reform. The two parties are agreeing on this,
Yeah.
but the people in power are not.
Yeah.
And yet our neighbors are feeling that.
So I think we're probably going to end up with another closely divided government. I'm optimistic that we'll have the White House, the House, and the Senate, but we'll have it
From
with
your
really
lips.
small margins. And so I think those are probably the only things we can accomplish. The things that there's pretty widespread agreement on. Get the border under control. That one, you know.
I think the Democrats are
crime
on
under
board with
control,
that
too.
now too.
Yeah, I
But,
think
but
so
I'm
too.
glad they didn't pass that stupid bill that would have made more judges. Because let's face it, when was the last time a government institution got smaller?
They don't, and that's why.
Ever.
So the thing I talk about all the time is this. You know, we need to claw back this bureaucracy that we have, and you know, people talk about drain the swamp. They talk about the deep state. It's all the same problem.
Yep.
You know, the swamp, the deep state, the imbalance. It's all, we have too many bureaucrats who are unelected and unaccountable running everything in our country. And most of what people think of as like law isn't actually law. It didn't pass through Congress.
It's policy
It was-
out of a bureaucracy.
Yeah. And now we enforce it. Oh my gosh, I just saw the time. I was supposed to be gone 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
Is there, now that I'm already late, I'll be a couple minutes later. Is there one other thing you guys want
I
to
just,
talk about?
I want to talk a fun subject.
Okay.
So
Yes.
you've been in there. What's it like during an election when you're kind of established in there? How is it? How's the temperature when you're there
Yeah.
in the Capitol?
Well, I don't know how established I am. I'm still not even a year in, but it is much less scary in some ways facing an election when you can see, you know, the people I work with, my colleagues in Congress, for the most part, are really interesting, really dynamic people who want to do what's best for this country. Sometimes the conclusions we come to as a group are idiotic, but the individual members are just so fascinating and hardworking as individuals that it makes me feel, I think this is part of the reason I'm so optimistic about our future, because I think we have a deep bench. I think we can keep sending people to Washington who want to preserve the Constitution, who actually believe in individual liberties. And I think we have people right now who are willing to break stuff and build it back better.
Do you have Democrats?
That phrase is
that
kind of
phrase.
ruined,
But do you have Democrats in Congress that truly you feel love the Constitution and believe it can stand on its own 2 feet?
I think there are some. I don't think the people who make the big headlines care that much about it, but I definitely, you know, when I'm in my committees and I see my Democrat colleagues questioning witnesses, they don't like government overreach either. You know, they're also getting testy about why is this agency doing something that's outside of its power. And so, yeah, I am still optimistic. I think we've got this in us. I do not think we're a dying empire. I think it felt like that when we were watching President Biden on a stage looking senile. It felt like we were a dying
You
empire.
mean like yesterday?
But when we saw Trump on a stage with his fist in the air and blood running down his face, I didn't feel like we were a dying empire anymore. And if he's willing to fight for it, I'm willing to fight for it. If you guys are willing to fight for it, I think the people who listen to you are willing to fight for it. And as long as we're willing to fight for it, I think we can save it. And on that note, I do have to leave. Thank you so much for always letting me come on your show.
Oh my gosh, please come again
Yep.
when you're done, traveling all over.